So first off, my name is Josh Garland. I am one of the financial advisors here at Apriem Advisors. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for one of our virtual events for the first time, we welcome you. So typically the format for something like this, we will set aside an hour total. We'll take about 30 to maybe 40 minutes of presentation time. And then we'll follow that with 30 to 20, 30 minutes or so of questions at the end. Now, as we get started, I would encourage everybody, please go ahead and silence your cell phones, close the door, and give us full attention, and we will give you our full attention and everything that we possibly can here to bring some value to you today. On the topic of questions. So today's format's slightly different in that we don't have a formal PowerPoint presentation that you're going to see on screen. Instead, this is a fireside chat type format where we are going to be asking questions and having conversation. So please, by all means, ask your cybersecurity related questions as we go. You can do so by using that Q&A tool that is available in the dashboard or your Zoom dashboard there. So please feel free, submit your questions. And as we go through, I'll either ask it right in the middle, or after we get through that initial, let's say 30 to 40 minutes of talking through the key topical items as we go. So with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker today. So our guest speaker's name is Erin Donham. She is a senior technology consultant for Charles Schwab, based out of Newport Beach, California. So she's local. Erin consults with advisors and investment advisory firms to improve their business operations by providing guidance in the area of process optimization, technology, and of course, cybersecurity. Erin started out as a laser and optic engineer. Later, she migrated to finance when she was the VP of Client Solutions for an independent registered investment advisor like Apriem out of Portland, Oregon. Erin earned a bachelor's degree in physics and chemistry from Willamette University. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch over. And Erin, before we jump right into talking all things cybersecurity, do you want to give a little bit of background about yourself? Talk about, how did you go from laser and optics engineering to cybersecurity of all things?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've always been interested in tech. That's the common thread through all of my different career opportunities. So technology has always been fascinating to me, and I've always been kind of a white hat. I don't want to say hacker, but I've always been interested in how those bad actors have gotten to us and gotten in. And so this led me to Schwab, and now I'm talk about this all day long and hopefully give you some best practices that will help protect. And again, thank you for the time today and for recognizing this as the important topic that it is.
Absolutely. Well, it's really exciting. So I know that the landscape when it comes to cybersecurity is constantly changing. Let's talk a little bit about, what's going on right now, what's relevant, what are some ways that we can, be safeguarding ourselves currently?
Yeah, the landscape out there. So bad actors and fraudsters have gotten extremely sophisticated. Gone are the days where you'll get an email that says, dear sir or madam, or kindly, that announced, oh, this is not really a true email.
The Prince of Abu Dhabi has money that you've inherited.
Now they are much more sophisticated about using social engineering to get to us. They prey on our curiosity and our, what? I didn't pay a bill. Let me double click on that. And that malware then is downloaded to your computer. They're preying on our wanting to do good and, wanting to serve our clients well. And they know how to use that against us. A classic scenario that we see every day at Schwab is an email interchange between you and your advisor. And you'll be going back and forth, having a normal email. Hey, how, got out this weekend? How's the weather? Is good. We got out on the boat. Oh, us too. It's fabulous. What about this equity or this stock? What do we do here? Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Just a normal average email conversation. But unbeknownst to both of you, your email has been compromised. Bad actors in your email reading what you're sending and receiving, and they're lurking. They, instead of spamming all of your contacts, immediately making themselves known, we're like, oh, I need to go in and change my password. Instead, they wait for that opportunity. So you're done with the conversation and you have no idea, but they've gone in and hit reply on that conversation to your advisor and say, oh, by the way, I just changed bank accounts on my IRA. Would you mind putting this new money link through for me? And while you're at it, will you go ahead and transfer $50,000? I need to do some repairs on that boat. They'll match your writing style. They'll match your tone. They've read every email you've ever sent because they've compromised. They've gotten into your email, and your advisor guards down. They know they've been talking to you all morning, and they might not verbally verify that transfer request. And that's as fast as we're seeing it happen.
Yeah, that verbal verification is huge. It's really, really important. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that when you send an email request or a text message request, right, that it's immediately followed up with a phone call from somebody saying, hey, just got to make sure it's you. And so I think that's a really important way, an important habit that all of us can continue to develop, where we say, maybe instead of submitting those requests, I commit myself to just calling.
Totally.
Like, call those requests in. Or if you send the request, just know somebody should be calling you on the other end.
Yeah, I think it's really funny over time as we've started to text and chat and Discord and Slack and all of these chat features, and it's coming full circle. And we're coming back to the good old fashioned phone call is the safest thing that we have available to us. But they're using all those mediums. Bad actors are using social media to reach out to you. They're using that SMS texting. You'll get those texts where you're like, what is this? And the new normal now is if you don't know it, just delete it. That's going to be one of our first best practices. And that is when in doubt, just delete. If it's important, it's going to come back to you. Or you can verbally verify those things that come in. Pick up the phone and call your friend. Did you really send this? Just in the same way that you call your clients to verbally verify a money transfer request.
Right. It's funny because, you're describing all of this and it makes me think of, for a while now, I've been feeling like, oh, we're all getting pretty good with the cybersecurity stuff, right? I get the email from mom or my dad or my sister, right? And it's like, this doesn't look right. Like they're telling me to go click this link to look at Amazon gifts or something, right? And like, that's not how my mom acts. And so then you look at the top and you can see it got blasted out to every contact that they had. And we're all starting to catch that now.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm seeing those emails come through from family members or friends when we're caught in those strings and they're saying, hey, I think your email got hacked. You should change your password. Yep. And so as everyone is getting better about their cybersecurity, it definitely seems that the fraudsters, those bad actors, they're really having to up their game.
Agree. But email still does remain the #1 attack vector that we see today. We also call it cyber public enemy #1. I know that sounds, but no joke, because almost every data incident that we see at Schwab tracks back to an incoming email from a bad actor intent on doing harm. So that's some of our first best practices. Whenever you're in your email, you want to slow down. Stop and let your gut instinct kick in, where you got that email from your sister saying, well, that's weird. I just talked to her. Why would she send this? You want to give your body a chance for your common sense to come in. But fraudsters will use that panic response like, oh, it's your sister. I just got diagnosed with cancer. I need help. Can you send this money right away? I'm in a pickle. And you're like, oh, and you start to panic, and they use that type of social engineering against you. So you really want to just, slow down and hover carefully over those links. Mm-hmm. Look to see where it's really going. Look at the sender's details. It's hard in this mobile world because you can't look as well but when in doubt, just wait and look at it on your computer so you can really see the details of that email to be able to catch it. Same thing with social media. When in doubt, just delete it. Plenty of fraudsters are actively targeting senior and vulnerable investors today. And usually one of the ways that they do that is an initial reach out on social media purporting to be from an old friend. Mm. So know that we are all being actively targeted, and hopefully that gives you enough resistance to say, nope, I don't know you, delete.
Yeah. You said something that was kind of a buzzword in my mind, right? And that was social engineering, right? Do you mind, I think some of us know what that is, but for the sake of all of our listeners, do you mind explaining a little bit more? What exactly is social engineering?
Yeah.
And what does it have to do with cybersecurity?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's almost the new hacking. Mm. What social engineering is when you're being targeted by a bad actor or a fraudster to try to get into your account, your information, that they are specifically looking at ways that they can get you to reveal information or for you to go outside of your normal protocols. That might be calling in purporting to be from Microsoft and saying, hey, we noticed a problem with your computer. You use Microsoft Defender. We need to get into your computer, log in and make it correct. Or that might be and again, it puts you into panic mode, puts you into defensive, and you're in your fight or flight mode, and you stop really thinking rationally. For example, the IRS will never email you. They'll never call you. The IRS will only go through USPS. They're never going to text you, but it can be scary if you see a text saying this is the IRS, you owe such, you're being audited, contact us immediately, click here. So it's that type of taking what is feasible, but it's taking it down a level of fraud or malware and trying to get you to do something you wouldn't normally do. That's really the essence of social engineering.
Yeah, I think one of the things too is as years have gone on and cybersecurity itself has progressed and these bad actors are progressing along the way. But I can remember one of the first things they did to help secure passwords was we started getting those, the question, right? I don't know, what was the name of the first street you lived on, right? Or what was the name of your favorite pet? Where'd you meet your spouse? Those kinds of questions, which we still use today, which are great. But part of this social engineering is going out and looking to find those answers.
That's right.
Is that information available through your Facebook profile, right? Is it available on your Instagram? Or can they call you and ask some questions pretending to be somebody that they're not and slip a question like that in there along the way to get those answers? They may have already tried to access whatever account it is they're looking for. So they already know what questions they're looking to get answers for.
100%.
So I think we need to be very, very secure and careful about those types of things.
Yeah, that goes back to that next best practice. And that is consider any incoming reach out to you guilty until you prove it innocent, whether that be phone call, whether that be social media, whether that be text message, email. You want to have a healthy level of suspicion for anything incoming. And when in doubt, hang up and call back a known good number that you've Googled or is publicly listed.
That's a great practice. So you were telling me this and just made me think of a story I had completely forgotten about, but I got a call one time from somebody and I pick up the phone and they basically tell me that they are a Microsoft security representative and that my computer had been compromised. And he told me, here's what I need you to do, right? And gives me these steps and I go, wait. I'm like, so you know that my computer has been compromised. And I go, okay, if you know that, then can you at least tell me what my name is? And then he kind of stuttered and then reverted back and like started the script over. And I'm like, there's no way you can know that information and have my phone number to call me, but have no clue what my name is.
Yeah.
Right. And then I just ended up just hanging up.
But that being said, I agree with you. Like that seems obvious in hindsight.
Yeah.
But they're so good. They could get any of us.
Right.
We have a woman who we work with, very tech savvy, in the working world, real estate. She's fabulous. And she had a person say to her, I was supposed to refund you $20. I accidentally refunded you $20,000. I'm so sorry. I'm going to lose my job. Can you please help me out and give that money back before anybody realizes it? Please, please, please. I'm going to lose my job. It's going to ruin my life. And of course, she felt bad for the guy. So she did it and followed his instructions. Again, any of us can fall for this. They are so believable.
Wow.
So that's why hopefully this knowledge and this level of healthy suspicion that you're gaining today will help you avoid those traps.
Absolutely. So let's hear. So on that note, so we talked about kind of email itself as being an issue, right? And we talked about social engineering. So how about, in the world and realm of passwords? How secure is my password? Are there some best practices that we should all be following when it comes to password safety and security?
For sure. If you get nothing else out of today, the key most important part, we used to get asked all the time, how often should we be changing our passwords? And really, if you do it right, you shouldn't be changing your passwords that often at all. What's far more important is that your passwords are long and unique. So let me break that down for a second. The length of your password, the reason that you're now starting to see 15 to 20 character in length passwords is because they have technology, the AI, the computing power out there, where bad actors can crack 8 or 9 character passwords within a matter of seconds, brute force crack. And so, but every time you add on one additional character to that password, or what we call a passphrase, it's exponentially increasing in the length it takes to crack it. So now when you're talking about a 15 to 20 character password or passphrase, it can take upwards of decades to crack. So that's the reason for the length. The uniqueness, what that means is you should be thinking about this with all of your important sites, your banking. Ideally all of your passwords, but I understand I myself have hundreds of passwords, but you should be thinking they're unique. They're not used. The passwords you use in those locations are not used anywhere else. And the reason for that is a cybercrime called password replay or credential stuffing. And that is when you see all these breaches that happen out there on the internet, oh, T-Mobile got breached earlier this year. What that's usually happening is a database of usernames and passwords is getting breached and sold on the dark web. There was a LinkedIn one about 10 years ago. So now, yeah, you remember that one. Believe it or not, those passwords got sold for $2,200. That's it.
Wow.
Super cheap to buy passwords. But what fraudsters have is the technology to take that username and password combination and plug it in against thousands of domains out there. And if you've reused that password even once, that's all it takes for them to get in and start figuring out how they can do harm. So that's the most important part with passwords, is long and unique. So then you're probably thinking, how do I remember?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm like, I mean, come on, like when we have all these different things we have to log into, like,
Yes.
how do I remember? And like, I really probably shouldn't be writing my username and password down on every piece, like on a piece of paper, all in one place for someone to be able to possibly compromise as well. So
That's
I
right.
mean, how does everybody here manage hundreds of potential passwords?
Yes, we get asked all the time, everybody on your team, do you use password managers? Yes, absolutely, we do. They are fabulous tools for encrypting, sharing across your devices, your iPad, your computer, for creating these long strings of gobbledygook that you're plugging into as your passphrase or your password. You're not expected to remember all of these. The big work involved with a password manager is getting it set up. It's a bit of time, and I think mine, it was a full 8-hour day that I took to go in and change every one of my passwords and create a long, unique, and I was embarrassed to see I had reused over 100 times my password. This was in 2017, so fairly recently. But these password managers are great tools for that. So then you're probably thinking, well, if I put all my passwords in one place, what happens if that gets breached? And that's where you want to layer in one additional piece of security, and that is called multi-factor authentication. And in a nutshell, what that means is, in addition to your username and your password, it's one additional token or factor. That could be an SMS text, that could be an authenticator app that has a number, that could be a physical device, but it's one additional piece that is needed to get into any one of your accounts. And I'm here to tell you that if you don't have this set up on everything you can, especially your email, consider yourself acting recklessly on the internet. It's that important. You should be turning on multi-factor wherever you can, wherever it's available to you. It's usually pretty simple in the settings of whatever, your email, and it's under the security settings, and you can turn it on. It'll put in your number, set it up, and you're good to go. It's a little more work in the beginning as you put in that number, but it is the only thing that stops these bad actors from other countries from accessing your account.
Now, believe it or not, I've actually seen this two-factor authentication work on 2 separate occasions with clients who actually called in a panic because they kept getting text messages with code, with the actual verification code to log into an account. And the great part is that whoever that bad actor is that's on the other end that has a username and password and is trying to get into their account, they cannot pass that second step because they didn't have that person's cell phone that was getting the text message with the code, right? And that code's changing every time that they try or that it occurs. And so that's actual real life experience that I've had where clients were actually saved or safeguarded because they had that two-factor authentication already on the account. Now, of course, it's definitely a signal to go in and change your password.
Yes.
Right. So number one, change the password. And then number two, hopefully you didn't have the repeating password like you had mentioned.
Exactly.
Right. And so what about coming up with new passwords? Is there any methodology or process or way to help us come up with good, strong passwords?
Well, those password managers will do it for you. All you do is create a new entry and say create password, and again, that long string of gobbledygook. We generally don't recommend taking an existing password and adding a permutation to it. There's plenty of, it may make sense for you because you've gotten into a rhythm. Well, if it makes sense for you, it's going to make sense for that bad actor who can I have heard stories of that where they've figured out, oh, this person is using, the name of the domain plus their reused password for every single, for each domain out there. And they figured out that pattern. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily, you reusing a password. It needs to be completely unique. And I know that's hard to manage, but that's where those password managers are really, really helpful.
Okay. All right. Very good. I'm realizing right now too that as questions are starting to come through, one thing I do want to remind everybody, let everybody know is that there are some questions that Erin, it's not that she can't answer, but it's that it's more the like, if I answered, I'd have to kill you kind of a thing, right? So just be aware that as these questions are coming in, which are great questions, and please, I encourage you to submit your questions. There's going to be some questions that come in along the way that are going to be, well, we can't really tell you that, because it could help the bad actors if we put that information out there. So sorry, I didn't mean
Nope,
to
it's
interrupt,
true.
but I thought that was something that would be important to share and
Thank
talk
you.
about.
Yeah, thank
right. Okay, so password managers are great. Are there any, I mean, is one password manager better than another?
There's a top 5. If you Google the top 5 password managers out there, there's a bunch that are great for either Mac or PC. The 1Password, that's the numeral 1 and the word password. There's Dashlane, there's Keeper, there's KeePass, there's LastPass. There's several out there, and that's the elephant in the room. We should talk about that for a moment. LastPass did have a breach in December. Granted that the passwords were hashed, and as long as you had a long, unique master password to get into your password manager, that's the one you definitely want to be unique. Then it should have been okay according to their blog. But it got at the heart of everybody's fear. I have a colleague who does use LastPass. Out of an abundance of caution, he has gone in and changed all of those passwords that were in his LastPass vault at the time of the breach. But everything you choose for your password management has a risk, even the good old-fashioned paper. But no matter what, password managers are still far better than reusing a password. We're still seeing, unfortunately, 60% of folks reusing passwords and fewer than 30% using multi-factor authentication.
Ooh.
And we've got to get those numbers reversed. And password managers can help do that.
Wow. I had heard somewhere before that typically with these fraudsters, they're looking for low-hanging fruit, right? And so I think to kind of go along with that idea of, well, what if the password manager gets breached, right? That's still very, very difficult to do. And it's much more difficult than if they breach somewhere else and get a password that has been used multiple times in a row, or find an account that's not using two-factor authentication. Because if all of your accounts are using two-factor authentication, even if they somehow manage to breach that one password manager and they get your passwords, when they go to access the other accounts, all of a sudden you've got that same situation we talked about, where if you're using a cell phone, right, and it's sending you a text.
Yep, that's exactly right, Josh.
So on that note, I know that there are apps for two-factor authentication, which will generate a random code. And then there's also the option to have it send a code to your phone. I believe also there's an option for them to call you oftentimes as well. Is there one better than another, or something we should be choosing?
No, there are varying levels. So I'd say the most secure is a YubiKey. It's a physical device that you have to have plugged into your computer, and you touch it in order for it to register. Then down to an authenticator app, just like what you're describing. That could be a Google Authenticator or a Symantec app, or something that's on your phone that gives you a number every 30 seconds. Very, very difficult to crack, if not impossible. And then biometrics, also very good. That is when you look at your phone and it opens up that app based on your face. Again, we might be having a different conversation in 2 years, but so far hasn't been cracked. And so that's that next level down: authenticator app, biometrics. Then SMS text, again, still very good in that we got to get more people using multi-factor rather than not using it at all. So even if it's text message, the only one we don't recommend at all is the lowest tier, which is email, because generally they've already compromised your email.
Okay, all right, that's really helpful. So I think everybody should at least be getting the message of, hey, we need to have good, solid passwords, long in length. 15 plus characters is probably great. We should have two-factor authentication. We could be using some type of generator to generate that second factor for us, or we can receive a text. We can use a password manager to help us maintain all of this information and generate the passwords for us. And then, so if we were to kind of change topics a little bit here, right? And we talk a little bit about Charles Schwab. And so what would you guys say is some of the biggest fraud that you guys are seeing take place that people need to be most aware of from that side of things?
Yeah. Hands down, the thing we're seeing most often is client email compromise and starting a conversation with an advisor. And so like I said in my first message, that combination of a compromised email account with a lack of verbal verification, that's where we're seeing that successful fraud happen. Luckily, Apriem always verbally verifies every money movement, so that won't happen here. But that's really what we're seeing throughout the industry. One of the great places to start, if you want to research a little more about this, if you go to schwab.com/Schwab Safe, that's one word, Schwab Safe. That's where you can sort of, it's a great diving board into all the different ways that we protect you, things that you can do for yourself, and how much we have going on in the background to help protect your assets.
And so what was that? That was
schwab.com/Schwab Safe.
Okay. I am going to send that in the chat for everybody that's on the call right now, so that if you need that link, you can go ahead and click it. I promise it's safe. And save that to your favorites and go back and review later. Okay, so we actually, there was a great question that came through that I think kind of correlates or goes right along with what it is that we're talking about right now. And that is, great. So Apriem calls, and we're looking for verbal verification of this move money transaction or this trade request, funds distribution. But what about, in today's day and age, what if somebody's using like a voice simulator, to handle their voice on the other end?
Yeah, it's a valid question. We haven't yet encountered that. But it's still too new, too early for both ChatGPT and AI to be able to answer those questions intelligently yet. But so far, again, knock on wood, we're not seeing it in the field yet. But it does bring up the point. How do you know? How does Apriem know that you are you? How does Schwab know that you are you? And we're still wrestling with that. And usually we'll come back to some type of knowledge-based authentication questions. In fact, we're reintroducing in DocuSign knowledge-based authentication questions starting on Tuesday. Because we have to be sure that you are authorizing your money movement and not a fraudster. But it's an excellent point with the voice deep fakes that are happening out there. How they're going to affect all of us is yet to be seen.
And so I can say that when we place that call out to you, typically there's some verification questions that we ask. I won't tell everyone what questions they are. And those questions can change. Most of you who've had these calls probably can remember us asking some specific questions. And I've heard people laugh before because it's like, well, why are you asking me that? Like, you're calling me. But it's for these exact reasons, right? And so where most of the time we already know that it's you and we know your voice, but this is about having good habits and good practice ahead of time to make sure that we're asking questions that ideally some artificial software or someone on the other end does not already have the answers to. I did have someone who was extra concerned about that. And so he gave me a specific security question of his own.
Great.
That we saved on our end. So it was one of those to make sure that we asked it when we call. And so we were able to log that in the profile on this end. So
yeah, it really is us versus them. And, we're all on the same team here, and we're all trying to protect each other. And so, making sure that it might take it might take a little longer to move your money if they can't get a hold of you, but to make sure that it's not fraud is the most important part of this, because once that wire or that money link goes out, that money, you can't claw it back. It's gone.
Yeah. Okay. So I've had a few questions asking the same thing. So everyone wants to know, are there some recommendations or some names of some good password managers that we can put out there?
Yeah.
And so I will tell everyone that typically this part's probably going to get chopped out of the replay or the recording. So if you want to write this down, you might need to write it down now. But thoughts on?
Yeah. Well, I would Google it. There's a couple different great articles from CNET or Wirecutter that go over, if you just Google best password managers out there, they give you kind of the top 5, but the 5 that I listed earlier are kind of the ones we see most often. 1Password, Dashlane, KeePass, Keeper, LastPass. Those are all sort of the big ones. No matter whichever password manager you choose, you want to make sure that it's a paid version. You want to support this company that has keys to your kingdom. You want to make sure that that it can be managed, that you can manage it in the way that you like. So for example, one of my colleagues uses Apple Keychain. Apple Keychain is a great password manager. I prefer a different password manager because I like managing multiple vaults. I have a vault for each of my children. I have a vault for me and my husband. I have a private vault, whereas Keychain, you can't quite do it that well. Same thing with Google Password Manager. The only reason I don't use it, it's an excellent password manager, is Google has all of my email, all of my drive. I want a little bit of separation and segregation.
Sure.
If somebody were to, for whatever reason, compromise my Google account, then they would have all my passwords too. So I like to have things a little bit separate if I can, to limit damage just in case I get compromised.
Yeah, I think that's good. So I think a mix of some of them works well. So I don't know about all of our listeners, but I do know that on my cell phone, I do use the password manager that's already built into the cell phone. And so for those of you that have not discovered that, if you have an Apple iPhone, there is a password manager that's built into your phone. So as you're hopping on, yep, that's Keychain, right? And as you're hopping on, websites and right there on your phone, you can tell it to save your password. Not bad at all. I mean,
yeah, it's very secure. Again, the only reason I don't use it is I like having complete control.
Yeah, right. And in that case too, if it's like a facial recognition, right, your iPhone is using facial recognition essentially to verify that that's you looking at those passwords. So when you go in your phone, even if you're already logged in, you go to the settings, then you go to look at passwords, it actually does another facial capture to make sure that it is in fact you that's opening up to look at those.
Yep. Quick funny story.
Yeah. Sure.
So both my brother and I, my brother's in tech as well. We both use 1Password, the numeral 1 and the word password. And I have a family account for my husband and our kids, and my brother has a family account that he had added my dad to. My dad is just ripe for fraud. So I was like, oh, good. This is so great. So I go to my dad's house. And I'm like, Dad, I'm so glad that you're using a password manager. This is so great. You've been reusing a password for way too long. I said, let me take a look at it. And I open up his Mac. I'm like, oh, this is great. And I open up his password manager and I go, wait, what? Where are all these errors? Why is it all red? What? Oh no, Dad, you're not supposed to put your reused password into every entry. You're supposed to have the password manager create them for you. But the reason I tell this story is because my dad's not dumb. They're not intuitive. Password managers, it takes a while to learn to use them. Mm-hmm. So don't stop, if you run into a problem the first time. Keep on, get through it, because they are very good tools, but they take a while to learn how to use and how to use properly. Essentially, you want to be copying and pasting. I don't find the web browser connections work so well sometimes. Sure. So I just keep it by itself. I copy and paste it every time I'm going to log in.
Yeah.
Another question that we get often is it okay to check mark the box that says keep me logged in? Oh, there's two minds of that. Generally, what that would mean is if you were to have that compromised, somebody would have to have your IP address, your piece of hardware. They'd have to be at your computer. There is a cybercrime that is called cookie stealing that's out there. We haven't yet seen it become prevalent, but right now, checking that box so far is generally okay as long as you're on a private computer. You're not sharing that computer with anybody else, and you're at one single IP address.
If it's too complicated, you can just let us know what exactly is cookie stealing.
Oh yeah, sorry. What that means is your browser, when you check mark stay logged in, your browser is creating a cookie that talks to that domain. And that cookie is remembering who you are, usually for about 2 weeks or a month. It'll have you re-sign in every so often. But that cookie is the means by which it's authenticating you are who you are, because you've put in that password. There are limited situations where we've seen getting a bad actor hacking into somebody's laptop, usually through an insecure password or a reused password of the laptop itself. So your two secure passwords need to be your laptop, your long unique passwords, and your master password to get into your password manager. Those are the two that must be long and unique. Anyway, and they're able to steal those cookies out of your browser so that they can recreate those logins somewhere else. Again, very rare. I don't want to freak people out. That is so rare that you don't need to worry about it, but that's the technical cybercrime called cookie stealing.
Okay. So maybe in the future, we'll hear more about it.
In a few years, we might be having that
not
conversation.
a huge concern at the moment. Okay, so how often, if I have not heard that there's a data breach or there's anything going on, how often should I be changing or updating my password? I know some websites make us do it anyway. Yeah. But if I don't have a website that makes me update my password, what's like a good amount of time I should be going on?
Yeah, as long as it's long and unique. The guidelines have actually changed on that. You don't really need to change your password that often at all. Again, more important is the length and the uniqueness. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So let's see here. Are there question from the audience? Just so everyone knows here. So, okay. So first off, I haven't heard of this, so I don't know if you have or not. But RoboForm, have you heard of RoboForm? There's a question on how is RoboForm rated. I'm assuming that's probably a password manager.
It is, and you know what? I don't know. I don't have experience with that particular one. That I think is a form of single sign-on, but I don't know for sure. Single sign-on generally can be considered secure. It's essentially you're using one, for example, let's say you have a Gmail account, and you have used it to sign in on your phone to various apps. That's considered a single sign-on because it's using your Google authentication to say, yep, this is who I am. I think that's what RoboForm is, but apologies, I don't know for sure.
I would say that if it's a password manager, it's probably better than the piece of paper with usernames and passwords on it.
Or reusing a password, yes.
Or reusing a password, right? Okay, so another question here. So let's hear. Are there benefits to having your bank account on file at Schwab versus just doing one-time transfers? It's a great question.
It is a great question. Generally, yeah, if you have a standing letter of authorization with a known good bank account, that gives us history, that gives you history, for sure that is better, because then going to submit money that way, we know it's known good. It's those money link setups that the fraudsters are really getting us, or getting you, I should say, because they're going to set up a new account and they're using an old signature that is in your email that you've sent insecurely, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. They're copying that signature onto a form and they're using their own forged check that has your information on it, but is their routing and account number. So yeah, ultimately, having it be a standing letter of authorization, an SLOA between Schwab and your bank account is safer because it gives you history.
So let me just see if I can reiterate this in case anybody else isn't catching what just occurred here, right? So you can set up your bank with our team. Our team can help you set your bank up so that it's connected to your Schwab account. So when you call in and you say, hey, Erin, I need some money, and we go through and we verify you, right, and determine that it's you, and then we go to send it to your bank, it's automatically connected. Okay. Now you could do the opposite of that, where you say, I don't think it's secure. I don't want Schwab connected to my bank because that could be insecure. Couldn't a hacker or something somehow get into my bank or get into my Schwab account because of that? And in that case, that means that if I need some money, or I'm going to call in and say, hey, Erin, I need some money. And then Erin says, okay, where do you want it sent? And every time I'm sending you new information for a new account to be sending those funds to. And so if you've had an account that we have had set up, we've sent transactions out to before, you've verified you've received those transactions, right? Every month, you get your monthly income, right? Or we send you a required minimum distribution once a year. We now have that history that tells us this is a safe place to send money to. And that can be, in other words, much more secure than having to send in and submit new bank information every single time.
That's right.
Am I hearing
That's
that properly?
exactly right.
Okay.
I also often get the question, well, Schwab Alliance, that's how you log in to your own Schwab accounts at home. I'm not going to set up my Schwab Alliance. I'm just not going to worry about all that. I'm just going to stick with paper and that'll be safer. That's a little bit like having a credit card and not signing the back of it. As soon as your credit card gets stolen by a fraudster or a bad actor, they're going to sign that card and it's going to be a perfect match. Schwab Alliance is the same way. I think it's a good way of doing business, or a way of behaving today, to just assume that your social security number, your birth date, your mother's maiden name are out on the dark web today, good old fashioned ID theft, and to operate as if bad actors have means to that. And so setting up your own Schwab Alliance and controlling it yourself, making sure it has that long, unique password. Please do turn on multi-factor on your Schwab Alliance. We don't force it, but please do that. I recommend it. That way you're controlling it instead of a bad actor who might be trying to get in with your information, and then they have full control over your Schwab account.
Beautiful. If it hasn't been said already, the floor is open for questions. I've got a lot of questions coming in, but if anybody's holding back, now's the time. Okay. So there's been actually a lot of questions surrounding AI. And so I'm going to read this one because I think it was in depth, right? And there were lots of questions that came in, so we might be able to answer all of them at once here with the one. All right. So this one is, any ideas, concepts, best practices around all the recent AI advancements, audio and voice stealing, mimicking, and then an example in here is like how big music artists are now being copied very easily, just due to the advancements in AI, and that's all coming on quite rapidly. So are there any kind of best practices or things we should be aware of to start protecting ourselves now?
Yeah, so from a Schwab perspective, it's still too new. It's too early. We don't have a stance on this yet. From an Erin perspective, I mean, if you're talking just personally, I think it comes back to what I said earlier about that phone being your friend, and having knowledge-based questions to your family or your friends who you're verifying that they did really send something, or if it's an incoming call and you're like, answer me this question. Because you're right, this is starting to put all of that in doubt. You should have a healthy level of suspicion. Again, anything incoming, when in doubt, just hang up. Just, they're going to try to keep you on the phone, but just when in doubt, delete, hang up, delete that text, don't respond to the social media reach out, because that's now, I think, the world we're starting to get into, is to not believe what's incoming.
I think those are some great best practices.
Sad that that's the world that we're now going into, but
it's only going to get more advanced as time goes on, and I think that we'll find ways to combat it as we go. The same way, I think a lot of people probably at this point are getting used to things like reCAPTCHA, right? Where these forms that we're submitting online want to make sure that we're not artificial intelligence and we're not robots, and so it's asking us to go through and select all of the photos that are in here that look like bikes. And even I have a hard time going and be like, which one actually has a bike?
Is that a bike?
Is that a bike? Are those stairs, or is it a painting? But that's because the computer is going to have a harder time than we are determining the answer to some of those questions. And
we have posited on my team about what ChatGPT is going to do to fraudsters, and will it make them better able to write emails that look like you? But really, to be honest, the fraudsters who are out there doing it today from other countries, where that's their entire GDP is based on defrauding us, they are so good at it. I don't see how ChatGPT could be any better, quite honestly.
That's really good. That's quite amazing. So okay, let's see here. We got more questions here, so I want to make sure we get those answered. So, okay, this is a good question. Should I write down passwords that are generated by a password manager and secure that paper document?
No, but most of the password managers have a recovery key, and that is something you should physically print out and keep in your safe. What that means is, if for whatever reason you lose access to that password manager, you're able to recover it using that recovery key. So no, I don't necessarily recommend writing down passwords, because then you have to upkeep. Whenever you have two different databases going and you're not sure which one is the more recent, you're in trouble. So you really only want one database. You just want to make sure that you have that recovery key. Another thing to consider possibly is most of them allow you to do a backup of that. Again, you have to be careful, because where you back it up, you have to make sure it's extra secure. And most of these password managers have layers of security and their own backups to get back up and running. But yeah.
Okay, that's really good. I would also think, what would your answer be the same if it was about storing the username and password for my password manager, right? So I have a password manager that I'm using. And I want to make sure that if something happens to me, the next generation can easily get access to all of my usernames and passwords.
Yes.
Is it okay for me to have something that they get that has that username and password?
Yes. So that is a great question. Some of them, like Dashlane, have a legacy option built into it, where you elect a trusted contact. And if that trusted contact pings Dashlane and pings you on Dashlane and doesn't get a response from you within 30 days, that trusted contact automatically gains entry. And the reason for that is in the event of somebody's death. That's the reason to be able to do that. I share my master passcode with my brother. He has it in his password manager, and vice versa. So the executor of my estate will have access to all of my passwords. But it's a great point. One of the things that I was thinking about recently with more and more of these iPhone thefts that are happening is, our lives are in our phones. And, in the same ways that we go through an incident response plan for our business,
right.
We should have that same incident response plan for our phones. And I've started thinking this way, like, oh, if my phone gets stolen, and my Apple ID, the fraudster locks me out of my Apple ID, I need a piece of paper in my safe that has the number, Apple's fraud number to call first thing, with somebody else's phone. At that point, I'll be in trouble. And all of what I'm going to do and who I'm going to contact and their phone numbers and their emails all in order, because I'm going to panic.
Right.
When my phone gets stolen, I won't know how to do anything.
We all crumble.
We crumble. So having a plan in place prior to that happening, hopefully you'll never need it, but it's so valuable.
Okay, so we've gone over a lot of information so far. Is there any kind of a fact sheet that we can email out to everybody after this? This is actually a question from the audience.
Yes. Yep. We've got a Schwab best practices fact sheet that, well, it's a little long. It goes over quite a few things, but there's some great best practices similar to what I've talked about today. I will say, if you get nothing else out of today, there are 3 takeaways. The one is long, unique passwords. You're going to hear me say that over and over again. Turning on multi-factor wherever you can, especially your email, especially your Apple ID. And lastly, treat email with suspicion. It's still the #1 attack vector today.
Okay, well, I think those are all really good. And I don't see any, I think we kind of got through all the questions here. I don't think I missed any. I tried to be really, really good here. So if any questions got missed, we will go and scrub back through this and see if we can get you answers after the call. I will also say on that last note, as far as the fact sheet going out, for those of you that don't know, we record all of these webinars. They're all housed on our website. It typically will be posted to the website about 1 week after the event. So Wednesday, Thursday next week is when you could expect to have the replay of this available on our website. So as a future resource, you can always go back into there and get pretty much anything it is that we've talked about on there as well. So, and then maybe I'll get the link to whatever fact sheet it is, and I'll get that posted under the video as well. So don't hold me to that. I'm going to clip this out of the video. So, okay. So with that, Erin,
yeah, I just wanted
comments.
Yeah, thank you all for your time and for seeing this as the important topic that it is. It doesn't have to be this big, scary cybersecurity world out there. If you just stick to some basics and have a little bit of good hygiene, you can ignore all of that churn that happens out there, all these scary stories of breaches and everything else. Just have long, unique passwords and turn on multi-factor wherever you can.
Perfect. Okay, well, Erin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
With that, everybody, I'm going to just say thank you so much again for joining us today. We hope to see you again at the end of next month. So we hold one of these webinars at the last Wednesday of every single month. If you want to see the schedule for the whole year, it's available on apriem.com. Also, don't just run when this ends. There will be a survey that'll pop up. Please add your comments, tell us how we did, let us know what we can do better next time. And we're always looking for topics that you guys are interested in. So cybersecurity was a big one. We brought it to you. If there's any other topics you guys want us to make sure that we cover or go over again, by all means, please tell us and we'll make sure to get that on the calendar for one of our future virtual events. So thank you again. We love all of you that are part of our Apriem family, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.